Hi guys, my name is Moon. My present paper is an oceans of integrated taxonomy, unveils marine fish diversity news record and precise special in Malaysian's water. So the study marine look at the diversity of bottom wing fish in the extreme economic zone, we say EEZ. The second is the EEZ on the east coast of the Malaysian peninsula in the South China Sea. Important Thailand on the north, different from the west coast by the Titiwangsa rendered area. The area is about 170,000 square kilometer. As for the next is start location from May to July 2016 years. Sea conditions were stable with less rain than during the northwest motion. The sea temperature was about 28 to 13 degrees. So the second is background. The topical protein disease fish have high diversity, small morphology difference, complex distribution, large servants are ranked. So far, the 3,030 special is over 2,500 family have been recorded. So the next is from the Mentrius DNA backgrounding using the COI genes. Arrangement help to find the new record and import special identification. Second is the two extinction fish in diversity in the east coast EEZ to the Malaysian peninsula by convene DNA backgrounding and morphologic identification. The sample context was conducted at 41 special sites when a total of 4,075 fish was coded using a Bowden 12. So the special was the interface by apparition using the fish catalog, and at the 3 sample per special was used from DNA essence to avoid confusing popular difference with the new special. The DNA backgrounding was performed using the COI genes preform fragment. Of the 4,075 sample, 2017 were successful screen, then were 92 samples, 68 genus, 41 families, and 16 order. So we know the preservement was the most common, have the 28%. So the second is for the conservation stations have two special. One is this one, the notions Vilepian and the New Vinterns Trust are considered Venus new bird. So the next one is the new record. Record is a hydrogen stellata. And the next one is the new special record is the ocean star Istara and the ocean rich ashes lepis. And we finding this fish Venus questions recognitions have a 12%, and second is this fish is Rominsis Brazilian tiger have a 30%, and second is the using Prenus views have a 2%. Interest views in versifier more than the 2% may indicate special. So we know the interspecial differences mean in small DNA difference with a special if it is the more than 2%. It may be a creep special. It's like the chromosomes difference family just because they look similar. Using both the homologation and DNA backgrounding have a 4,075 Bolden fish sample with innocent and indexing 92 sample, 92 special bases on their appearance and 95 group bases on DNA. So we know that DNA backgrounding uses some special had interspecial divergence more than 2%. The most DNA crossings match morphological chemically reversing proceeding under visions complete special and complete like a degree. DNA backgrounding complement homology in the identification which may understand difference experience in traversy in tropical sea, and by integrating morphology, management, and biology data it help resource create difference better understand special agreement and support fishing management and conservation. So in this study, a DNA backgrounding databases of each coast Bolden divine fish was established as a reinforcement from special identification, conservation, and monitoring, and the connecting more special in future could improve the essence of the conforming branching special. This is my presentation. Thank you.
How are these fish samples be collected and processed?
Is for the sample colonies have 41 sample scenes, and they catch the 4,075 fish as colors. The special was the fish in turn the model special advancing using the fish candle red.
What were the main findings in terms of species diversity?
Sorry, can you speak again?
What were the main findings in terms of species diversity?
You can see this one. You can for the 4,075 sample and the 217 for the successful that have the 92 special and 68 creators, 41 families, and 16 older.
What is the significance of differences between morphological and DNA-based results?
The morphological exists instance, the 92 special with DNA backloading group have the with DNA backloading group sample in 95, and it is some special should more than 2%. Most DNA clusters mentors morphological classifications falling under Crosby's feature and Crosby's line angel.
Okay, Moon. So I don't know if you are aware you have extensive pronunciation issue. Your pronunciation is usually very blurry. For example, can you read this again? How do you read this? And how do you read this? You see, I read July, I read species. And that's just few examples which I took note. And there were extensive problem with pronunciation. My suggestion for you is now it's an AI world, and you can ask AI to read for you. Please ask your AI to read your line for you, and you follow her pronunciation to correct the pronunciation. You might think pronunciation is a minor issue. However, when there is extensive pronunciation issue, then it's a big problem, because you had this issue and you didn't use pointer. So I was struggling, trying to know where you are talking about, especially when you have multiple points. You don't use pointer and you have pronunciation issue. I very often got lost. So it's very important for you to do this. Okay, remember to improve your pronunciation next time. And also you need to use pointer more often, and you need to be more fluent. Okay, so that's the main issue. And to improve your fluency, next time don't look at your phone. All right, and then for the introduction part, what was missing is you can think about the question of Howard. He was asking what's the difference between morphological identification and DNA barcoding. However, in your introduction, you started immediately with a study period without introducing why you need to have these two different methods. Why? So you need to use at least one slide to introduce why you need to have these two methods. And at the same time, you can use the chance to explain the meaning of this, because this has occurred many times. Cryptic species. You use introduction, one slide for DNA barcoding versus morphological identification, the other for the issue of cryptic species. Then you go to your study area, and between your page 4 and 5, 4 is your background, while you use just the map, and then 5 is your methods. So between these two slides, you should have one slide telling us exactly the purpose of the study. Purpose. And then at page 9, you often read. How do you read this again? 470. No, you read many times. 4,000. Very often. Okay? So you need to pay attention to that. Okay, and then here you have this Persephone was the most common, and Persephone was here. However, when you have this, and then you follow by this slide, are they Persephone? I hope that you can, because later you have these vulnerable species, which is good. However, I still don't know. At least I'm not a fish expert. I still don't know what they are. Can you say a little bit more? Because they are the most common species. At least you can give us some nice photo of them, right? So can give the somewhere. Yeah. And then regarding the question of Kimberlie, when people ask you about diversity, it won't be that ideal just to say how many samples, how many species, etc. Even other biologists, I also know there are some index, isn't there? Diversity index. I don't know if they reported diversity index. If they do, you should say that. And if they don't, then you have to say they didn't calculate diversity index. So diversity is not simply the number of species. All right. And these are okay. It's good to have this large photo. They are cute. However, for this main figure from the paper, you didn't follow the general principle, like telling us what is the X and what is Y. And you see this abbreviation intra-SPNN. I have no idea, and you didn't introduce them, and you didn't tell us this 2% line, what is that, and this contour, and the dots. So I have no idea what they are. Therefore, I have no idea how you reach this conclusion. So your introduction of data should be able to let us understand the your concluding remark, but this was not the case. So next time you need to improve your introduction of this figure. No, you didn't introduce the data. I want you to introduce the data itself. Data is the king. Without the data, this is storytelling, okay? You have to avoid storytelling. Do not just throw out the conclusion and say you need to believe me. You have to show data, introduce it, make us believe, then tell us the conclusion. All right, and for the concluding remark, I have to say I have the feeling that this is maybe copy-paste from the paper. I have the feeling I'm reading the paper, especially this and this. That means you didn't really digest and then write from your own. And usually I want to avoid having sentence like something need to do in the future. To me, this is nonsense because I only want to know what's known in this study. So conclusion should be very specific, should be reiteration, repeating what has been said, the most important finding in this study. Something that people will know only after listening to your talk. Okay? Not this cliche, something to do in the future. That's cliche. So avoid that. Okay. Hope to see improvement next time. Thank you.